Welcome to Self Wellness.
Ladies and gentlemen, seekers and skeptics, visionaries and healers, welcome to Maha with Mike. We stand at a turning point, not just in medicine, but in absolute meaning. In a world of pills for every pain, speed over soul, something ancient is rising, not to replace modern medicine, but to actually complete it. This is the new frontier of healing, where science meets spirit, where data meets energy. And your body isn't just a machine, but it's actually a message. We're talking about acupuncture, artificial intelligence, breath work, cold plunges, brain scans, ancient herbs and clinical trials, repurposed drugs, winning the war on cancer. We're talking about a system that doesn't just ask what's wrong with you, but dares to ask what happened to you. How did you get here? What kind of exercise do you do? What kind of supplements do you take? And better yet, what's trying to wake within you? This isn't fringe. This is forward. Hospitals are listening, and pretty soon they will be a thing of the past. Researchers are opening up. Millions of people are tired of being treated like charts. People now realize that profits have been put above the entire human race. And with whole human stories, we're going to rise together. And we're not just dreaming about a new kind of medicine. We're naming it. We're absolutely claiming it. Rooted in the past and backed by evidence and powered by purpose. This is not an escape from modern medicine. This is the evolution of it. This is the future of holistic health. Stanford Graham, welcome to the show.
Good morning, Mike. Wonderful to be with you.
Absolutely. I think the world is starting to wake up. You know, the great D.D. Palmer said, the power that made the body can heal the body. And it is absolutely true. When we start to understand that everything that we put into our mouth is a life or death decision. Talk to us about what you've been up to, the products that you're passionate about, but more importantly, how the company that you've been working with and for is becoming more of a technology company, a data company, than just a supplement company.
First of all, Mike, I agree with you 100% I agree with you completely about what you say. The intimate act that we call eating, in more ancient cultures, you know this well, that the act of eating food and sharing food, which is very basic to human community, is perhaps in a religious parlance is a sacrament. This gesture of being able to nourish ourselves is a very intimate act. So yes, the choice of what we put from hand to mouth is actually quite sacred, and the body responds to the the respect, the love, and admiration that we have for it. As far as the company I work with, Cardio Miracle is the company. Actually, the name of our product, which is not a supplement, but actually, as Dr. Judy Mikovits calls it, it is the water of life. You know, it's a composition of dozens of food, not what we would typically, foods that typically get called, Mike, superfoods, as well as herbs and botanicals, amino acids, all of which support the remarkable central function of the body, beating from our heart, the entire circulatory system. So, as a technology, yeah, it's been a remarkable ride with John Hewlett, with you. You know, I remember when we met years ago. and your first experience with it. But Cardio Miracle, as Judy Mikovits calls it, is the water of life because it encourages and supports the production of a gas molecule called endothelial nitric oxide, and which supports the health and flexibility of our cardiovascular system, our hepatic system, our lymphatic system. So there's a bit more to talk about there, but I'm trying to be a little cogent in my response to you, brother.
You listen. My audience is one of those people that wants to understand the who, what, when, where, and why. So don't be afraid to let the people know. Like, and again, what's this, Stan? What do you think's in there? Drink it twice a day. Took my mom off of all 4 of her heart medications, and I'll share a quick little story, even though I don't have permission to do it. But I'm the son, and the son can do what the son does, and the mom can be mad if the mom gets mad. But Cardio Miracle, guys, is what I literally refer to it as the whole fruit seed and amino acid supplement, because this thing, you're talking about improved blood flow and circulation, supports heart health, enhances energy and endurance, boosts immune function, reduces inflammation. And when you're talking about your regular, run-of-the-mill products that are out there on the market, you might be lucky if you see 1 or 2 things that are in there. You're talking about quercetin, turmeric, CoQ10, beetroot powder, magnesium, vitamin C, vitamin D, arginine, L-citrulline. These are all things that have scientific backing. And if you go look at the package, like, I think the most beautiful thing is you got John Hewlett right there on the front that basically talks about how they've created the most scientifically advanced product in the world. But one of the things that I love the most about it is there's 150,000 published articles on the benefits of nitric oxide. So this isn't just like we're taking a shot in the dark here and we're just guessing. But when you can take somebody, and again, Stanford and I, we're not doctors, but when you can take a human being who's having heart issues, cardiovascular issues, they're having issues in bed, they're having libido issues, not wanting to exercise, and you can have them start taking this product twice a day. I recommend most people take it in the morning when you get up. Like, really, like I found with Cardio Miracle, like 8 o'clock and 5 o'clock is like the best time to get the best driven results when you wake up. And if you wake up at 6, take your first scoop at 6 with some structured water. Let it replace your coffee. You will be blown away with what it does. But when you can look somebody in the eye and they tell you, I was on 4 medicines, Michael, for my heart, and after 90 days of taking the Cardio Miracle products, I was able to get off of 3 of my heart medicines. And then 30 days later, I went to a naturopath, and I got off the 4th one. So if in 4 months of taking this product, which is not expensive, it's literally less than a cup of coffee a day, and you can go out there and you can get off of medicines that will eventually probably kill you, because a lot of people don't think about the long-term effect on your liver. They don't think about, I'm just going to take this one supplement. But when you start mixing the 3 or 4 of them, that's the one thing, Stanford, that I will say that I love about AI, because before it would take you 6 years to find out all the contraindications of medicines. Now you can find out in a minute. It'll search 1,000, websites for contraindications. Right. And the best part is, guys, this tastes really good.
So, a few more specifics about Cardio Miracle in terms of its mechanisms of action. That combination of ingredients and the bioavailable production of endothelial nitric oxide does a number of things. Mike, number one, it optimizes the viscosity of your blood. This is so critical. If you were to take a map of your vascular system, including all from your arteries down to your microcapillaries, which runs something between 80,000 to 100,000 miles of terrain, there's very, very little of that architecture that you would call a straightaway. And there are bends and curves and bifurcations and forks, all kinds of design, and you have a liquid tissue, your blood, that is that's running that route. if you put a highly viscous liquid in that kind of architecture, then you're going to get interrupted flow. Just to be really clear, a highly viscous liquid is something like your cold molasses, something that has a very low flow rate. And what Cardio Miracle does, what it induces when you have a high production of this endothelial nitric oxide, your blood viscosity is optimized so that it can travel at speeds at which it's built to travel. And it can travel through that vascular system in ways that it is actually designed to do. Most people don't know, Mike, that our organs all operate optimally at different temperatures. Now, the fluctuation of those temperatures is very nominal, but very important. And all of our organs are built of different tissue. In fact, endothelial cells in the liver are very different than endothelial cells in the kidneys. It's different than endothelial cells that we'll find in the lungs. But the point is this: when your blood is optimally viscous, it can travel at the speeds that it's built to, so that it can regulate the temperature of every organ, so that the organ can operate optimally. So when we have issues like high blood pressure or low blood pressure, or we start experiencing the symptomologies of atherosclerosis, where our arteries, where not just our arteries, but our entire vascular system begins to harden and loses its flexibility, loses its ability to actually handle the material that it's built to communicate throughout the body. Then we have when the blood can't travel as it should, it cannot communicate what it is built to deliver, what it's built to communicate, whether it's oxygen through that vascular wall. The permeability of that vascular wall is also something that Cardio Miracle helps regulate. In order for blood to communicate the data that it's carrying at the speed that through the vascular wall, we call that blood flow, as you know, that's that horizontal action of the blood actually communicating oxygen, hydration, nutrition, etc., through that vascular wall to the tissue outside the blood compartment. The endothelial cells that make this nitric oxide, the endothelial cells that are supported by Cardio Miracle, the endothelial cells that make nitric oxide, supported with all these fabulous ingredients that you find in Cardio Miracle, those endothelial cells are the interior lining of your vascular system, and they regulate the aperture, the tightness, the tight bonds and the loose bonds of your entire vascular system, and regulate the degree to which oxygen can actually flow through your arterial tissue, through your microvascular tissue, through the nutrition and hydration. As I said, all of that material, whether the blood can accurately, consistently, and persistently communicate that through that wall out, so that from inside that blood compartment, it can move that material freely outside the blood compartment to the tissue that's expecting it, that needs to be nourished by it, that breathes by it. All of that's driven by the health of this fabulous liquid tissue that we call blood. It's actually an organ itself. Blood's an organ. And when you talk about AI, I would really David Martin uses a term, in opposition to AI, and it's accumulated wisdom, or AW. When the body uses its own wisdom and is not interrupted by the artificial healing mechanisms that we say, the article that you sent to me a few days ago to review indicated that that deaths by myocarditis are down since 1970 by over 60%, and that other cardiovascular diseases at the same time are rising. I found it, and they quote this study by the American Heart Association, right? Well, anything that they publish, in my mind, I'm quite skeptical of the American Heart Association. It was in 1998, Mike, that a trio of doctors discovered that that nitric oxide, this gas molecule, was the way to prevent and cure heart disease, blood diseases. And heart disease is as you know, is the beginning of a cascade of an unending amount of thousands of ailments. When the blood is ill, the rest of the body cannot be well. But that Nobel Prize for this trio of doctors discovering that endothelial nitric oxide, they even claimed at the time that given this solution that they had discovered, that we were looking at the end of heart disease, cardiovascular disease, and we're 30 years on almost, and everything's gotten worse. And I take your point very well. You're on point. We're medicated to death. We're medicated to death. In fact, the allopathic industry. The reason that heart diseases have, on the one hand, there's an argument that there's not as many heart attacks, myocarditis incidents that lead to fatality, but there's so many other cardiovascular diseases that lead to fatality. And the point that they make in the article is, our ability to manage, to help people survive a heart attack and manage them the rest of their life with pills and drugs and garbage, that the quality of life decreases. Have we really improved the human condition at all in the last 30 years? We haven't, and things have become worse. I think worse because we're stewards of more knowledge. We're stewards of more knowledge, more accurate knowledge, and we're not. The stewardship over that knowledge has been actually quite pathetic.
One of the things
Cardio Miracle was stepping up to the plate, swing that bat of knowledge and intelligence to say, there's the body's architecture is divine. It's mechanical and artistic. And if we treat it well, if we feed it well, if we move it regularly, move it well, all the things you said in your beautiful introduction, it responds. It responds in kind. It responds in kind.
One of the things, Stanford, that really, opened up my eyes, and I've always listened to, John talk at the conferences, and, I've been to the Truth About Cancers. I've been to the Healing for the Ages, so I've been to all the conferences, and I've known about nitric oxide for quite a while. And, anybody who's been following the Cardio Miracle story understands that, it improves blood flow and circulation and can support exercise performance and, for the immune function. We've always known this. But one of the things that I did not, until I went into a deep conversation with Dr. Judy Mikovits, was actually talking about nitric oxide and how it's involved in neurotransmission, meaning that it's actually helping the brain cells communicate and can support cognitive function, which is why, I work hand in hand at my wellness center. So we've got the self wellness, which has been closed for a little bit while I've been helping my mom rebound from being sent home to die by her doctor, her primary care physician. They said that there was nothing that they could do. And when my mom was sent home to die, I did not accept that. I had people coming over, laying hands on her by the grace of God. We had people praying for her. We literally had a woman who hadn't seen us in probably 40 years call us and say, I've been praying for your mom and I want to let you know. She goes, one of the prophetic women from the John G. Lake Ministries called me this morning and said God told her to get on a plane and come to Palm Beach. And she goes, I don't know why. And Jane, a friend of our family, said, I know why. She goes, I need you to come pray for my friend Kathy. And that's my mom. And I will tell you, John Hewlett would be so happy, Stanford, to hear that over the past 7 to 10 days of when she was laying on death's door in her bed, hospice had already been called in, we didn't listen to what the doctor said. We decided to continue to pray for her. And every time my mom could open her mouth, we were putting Cardio Miracle in her lips. We were giving her Cardio Miracle. We were giving her Dr. Judy Mikovits's Oncogenics, which tastes like absolute crap. I will say that, Dr. Judy, please forgive me. It tastes horrible. And we were taking some repurposed drugs. take a little bit of menbendazole, a little bit of ivermectin, crushing it up, and I was making her a cardio miracle concoction with God's repurposed drugs. And I can proudly tell you that my mom has seen a turnaround that nobody will look at her and say it's anything other than a miracle. And that's why when, you know, I was so excited to have you come on, because Cardio Miracle can not just be a game changer, but it literally can be a lifesaver. A lifesaver. When my mom had no way to bring in the minerals and the supplements and the nutrients, like it was one of those moments where, and I always like to bring things back to the Bible. Okay, I don't know what your relationship is with Jesus, but my relationship with Jesus is he's a healer. And I remember that when my mom was diagnosed and the doctor said there's nothing we can do, they go, this is terminal. And she goes, well, that's not what my physician says. And they said, who's your physician? And she said, Jesus Christ. And I tell you, when hospice came in, after they hadn't been seeing my mom for a week, when hospice walked in and my mom wasn't in her bed and she wasn't in the wheelchair, they're like, where's Kathy? And I felt like that moment where the angel said to the two women, why are you looking for the living among the dead? And my mom was sitting up in her bed yelling at my sister about which clothes and where they needed to be hung. And I'm like, this is a woman who a week ago couldn't open her eyes. She couldn't drink water. And it's just incredible, you know, and I will continue to sing the praises of Cardio Miracle and Jesus and the things that kind of nursed mom back to health. So, you know, again, to my audience, you guys have to understand this isn't just some, you know, Mylar bag filled with a bunch of random extracts. Everything was thoughtfully crafted, scientifically formulated, and it was put in there. And I will tell you, I've had the conversations with John before, and I'm like, hey, you could make this a couple dollars cheaper. And he goes, yeah, he goes, but then it wouldn't be as good as it is. So, you know, I will tell you, it is the least profit making product for me, but it delivers some of the greatest results.
That's a beautiful story. I'm so happy to hear about your mom. That is I think one of the more beautiful questions that's posed in the gospel that helps us think about how we're using, you know, our time, the stewards of our time, and our purposes here. Is why are you looking for the living among the dead? That's beautiful. David Martin, if I may, you're a friend of David's as well. David Martin published yesterday an essay on his website. It's here's the title. Mike, I'll send you a copy. Maybe you can circulate this with the podcast. Coherence Beyond Architecture, Harmonic Memory, and the Gospel of Emergent Collaboration. Yeah, it's an extraordinary writing. He speaks something. He and I had a conversation last week, and he thanked me for a comment and for reminding him of me as a sacred sacrament, and said that there is a human gospel that's divine. And I think one of the things, you know, take the teachings of the healer. He taught us how to be with each other, and that the greatest of all commandments, you know, that the entire law was wrapped up in these two great injunctions, right? To love others, you know, that we should love each other, and that becomes a very intimate direction, you know, in a Hebrew tradition, is to love ourselves and our neighbors. And I think our health is directly, you know, correlated with that directive, and to travel on the path of love. Your story about you and your mother is a
Well,
story
and
of
you
love,
want
Mike.
you want
It's a story of
Stanford,
love.
you want not only is it a story of love, but my girl reminds me when I tell her, I go, Jesus is the same today as he was 2,000, 4,000, 6,000 years ago, the father of Abraham, the father of David, the father of Moses. The story of David and Goliath, it just, Jesus uses people. And I looked my mom in the eye and I told her, I go, your story is going to be used for the greater kingdom of good. I go, because when you think about it, and I said to my, I was sitting there looking at my beautiful daughter crying. And Stanford, when I tell you, like, I said goodbye to my mom, I kissed her goodbye. She was yellow. She was jaundiced. Her bilirubin level was through the roof. There was no coming back. And, she was unresponsive. Like when hospice comes in, you stop drinking liquid, like, the game is over.
Yeah.
When I left, I was crying because I had to go spend a week taking care of my daughter, and I had to move a house, and I said goodbye to my mom. And for Jesus to come in and to touch her, but not only that, everyone reminds me, they go, Mike, all the things that we did for your mom were from Christian Jesus people that had been introduced to your life. All of these things. And I think the one thing that stood out to me the most was like thinking about all the years ago when John Hewlett made Cardio Miracle, right? And when you start thinking about healing, not just in the blood of Jesus, but the research that we're doing, the words that we're speaking on these podcasts, it reminds me of John. It reminds me of John 14:12, where Jesus said to his disciples, he said, verily, verily, I say unto you, he that believeth on me, the works that I do, shall he do also. In greater works than these shall he do, because I go to be with my Father. So you start thinking about what does that mean? We watched a woman get on a plane from Oklahoma City and fly nonstop to Palm Beach because Jesus said to her, get on a plane and go to Palm Beach. She didn't know why, but she got on. And the first thing that she said when she came into my house, my mom could barely open her eyes, and she nodded yes, and she put her hands on her liver, and she started to pray for her, and she said, Kathy, do you want to live? And she went like this. And she goes, do you believe that Jesus can heal you? She said, yes, because believing in the blood of Jesus is almost as powerful as the blood of Jesus. And it reminds me of the woman who was bleeding when she reached out just to try to touch. She wanted to touch Jesus's cloak. And he said, woman, by your faith, you have been healed. And I believe that what John is doing and what you guys are doing and the words that we're speaking, we're going to continue to open up the eyes. My next guest is going to be on in about 10 seconds, 15 seconds. So if there's any closing words on Cardio Miracle, take the next 30 seconds. Obviously, everybody knows if you go to airwaterhealing.com, it's the #1 selling heart health product that we have on our store. If you guys go on the subscribe and save with code Lindell, you get the free air purifier. But if anybody wants to reach out to you, do you have an Instagram handle or a Twitter where people can follow your work, Stanford?
No, but I do not. But I would encourage people to follow, Cardio Miracle on social media. I'll say this, Mike, in the spirit you're offering. John is on a divine mission. Our friend Judy has said of this composition that he's put together that she doesn't know an individual or any combination of individuals on the planet that could have put together these ingredients in their specific order, in their specific amounts relative to each other to create a composite product that is Cardio Miracle. And that's why she said John Hewlett received a download from God. And she'll say that relentlessly. From Judy, her, John Hewlett did receive a download from God, and we can actually drink that daily. And I'll tell you, everybody who's listening, if you haven't done it, treat yourself as a sophisticated lab rat. Get some Cardio Miracle. It's a no-risk transaction. Buy it, try it, and feel it. If you're dissatisfied, we'll refund your money. No problem. But improve your life. Increase the connection between the intelligence that you have and the choices that you make. The choice of what you put in your mouth and how you choose to move your body are critical daily habits. And be conscious about them. Be intentional about them, and your life will improve. Your life will
It's
improve
absolutely.
remarkably. Thank you, Mike, for
Well,
sharing your
Stanford,
story about your mother. It's lovely.
Thank you, and thank you guys for creating a great product. And on behalf of Mike Lindell and Lindell TV, we want to send you off with a famous clapper. If I can get it to go up, okay, we'll post that at that. But I had some beautiful music played for you, and we'll get my soundboard fixed. But I will give you a real clap, and thank you for what you guys are doing over there at Cardio Miracle. We're gonna go to a quick
at you.
Quick commercial break, and then we're going to be bringing in our next guest. Thank you so much, and God bless. Hey guys, Maha Mike here. I've got some exciting news for you. Our new partners at Farm Easy Bank are leading the way in affordable, trustworthy healthcare, bringing an impressive lineup of generic medications at prices that your family can actually afford. Not only that, but they are now offering ivermectin and fenbendazole, two compounds that are gaining attention, and unless you've been sleeping under a rock, you've probably heard about their incredible benefits. You can trust every single order that you get from Farm Easy Bank. Why? Because they come from reputable, reliable sources, and their commitment to quality means you get the same effectiveness you'd expect from the big box store without the outrageous price tags. In fact, you can save up to 80%. That's right, 80% compared to traditional pharmacy prices. On top of that, they offer fast, discreet shipping to the comfort of your home. And the best part is, you can use the coupon code MAHA2025 for 20% off any order over $199. This is a limited time offer, so don't wait. Take control of you and your family's health today. And stock up, because you would rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. So go to Farm Easy Bank, that's PharmEasyBank.com/Maha and start your wellness journey with trusted support and serious savings. I'm serious, guys. If you haven't been over to Farm Easy Bank, you guys have got to go there. I can tell you, it's life-saving. You guys want to say goodbye to overpriced meds and the bank-breaking bills. Say hello to Farm Easy Bank. Not be disappointed. Make sure you use the promo code MAHA2025. You guys can order your meds in a click. You can stack up rewards. You can even bank on your health savings all in one place, and it's discreet, fast shipping. It is unbelievable. Not only will they open up a beautiful delivery box and it's like confetti pops, but it is going to open up a true unrevolutionary inside of your body, guys. You got to give them a check. Just farmeasybank.com. I'll share more in depth about my personal story with you guys in another episode, but you want to put inside of your favorites websites and have it. They're just a click away. I want to be bringing in, this is the third time we've had this gentleman on our show, and I was a little disappointed to hear how quickly the jury deliberated on this, what I will say was one of the biggest lawsuits that had ever been filed against the corrupt Ascension group. But I want you to hear it directly from him. We've got to get this story out there, but I promise we are going to let that beautiful little girl continue to live on, and we're going to continue to bring on and share her story so no one else is harmed and no one else is improperly murdered. Scott, welcome back to the show.
Oh, wow, what a great introduction, Mike. Yeah, that little girl, she was my best buddy, and her name was Grace. She was only 19, and she had Down syndrome, which made her extra special. She was a gift from God, and I miss her more than anything. I just was asked on a interview right before I came on, what would Grace be saying right now? She would be saying, "Way to go, earthly dad," because she called me earthly dad. And of course, one of the reasons I keep speaking out is because I don't want this to happen to anybody's best buddy. And, the lawsuit was in their legal system. So what do I mean by that? we are in, for people who don't understand what is happening, I encourage you to read Revelation 13. Because in Revelation 13, God explains Satan's dual nature. He has an antichrist nature, that's the first beast, and he has a false prophet nature, that's the second beast. And Satan is the prince of this world. Satan is under God, but Satan is the prince of this world. And he created the medical industrial complex. He created the legal industrial complex. So when God called us to do this lawsuit, you think, well, what's the purpose? This doesn't make any sense, right? It cost $1 million for a lawsuit that the best case scenario, if we won, is we could get $750,000. So what's your purpose here, God? Well, I think his purpose is much bigger than what we can grasp. In fact, I know it is. And a loss in this system is more important than a win from God's perspective because he cares about souls. So the fact that the jury only deliberated 15 minutes, of course, I was completely shocked because we had a better case. We had better witnesses. We had better experts, and we had the truth on our side. And yet the system, the legal system, captured the day. And it's really interesting to go through a lawsuit and you see what that system is made up of. And I'll just give you I have lots of examples, so I'll just give you a very simple example. I was asked, first of all, the case should have only been about what happened to Grace from October 6th of 2021 until October 13th of 2021. That's all the case should have been about. But in that system, the judge has authority to allow other things in. So we filed motions in limine, which is saying to the judge, hey, we don't want in all these things about what Scott has researched after Grace's death. And he disallowed that. So all that stuff was able to come in, and the defense was able to make the case about me, the conspiracy theories, COVID, all those things that had, what's the reason? They didn't have a case. I mean, we had the case. Grace was euthanized with Precedex, lorazepam, and morphine. She had 2 overdose events that we were not aware of. And, they overdosed her a third time. The doctor put an illegal do not resuscitate order on her. That's why I'm shocked. I mean, I can't believe the jury cited for the defense, given all the evidence that we presented. But yet when it was time to present evidence on the other side, on the conspiracy side, they asked me, well, what about Grace's Down syndrome? Did that influence what happened? And I started quoting out of a journal. And the defense objected. The judge sustained the objection. So what's the reason I can't quote out of a journal in that system? Because it's their legal system. And in their legal system, I'm not an expert, so I can't quote for the jury what I've researched. They attempted to make this my fault. They attempted to make me look like a kook. And, in some regards, they were successful. And that's okay, because God's light is meant to shine evil on everything, not just the medical system, which I've been fighting for 3.5 years, but the legal system. Remember, legal is not lawful, Mike. So anyway, I'm rambling here for a bit, but I want to share with you what really shocked me about the decision after you asked some questions.
Well, I think that most of us already knew, and it's hard to say it, but it's not hard for you to receive it. This was a Satanistic trial in a Satanistic system. And, when I first heard the jury results and they told me that the jury had decided within 15 minutes, my first thought was that it was an unwinnable lawsuit. And our purpose is going to be to share your story. And each person that we can keep from ever walking into a medical hospital, I think Joe Rogan and Dana White, guys like that, have best said it. If God forbid I'm ever in a car accident, bring me to a life-saving surgeon. But for most illnesses and conditions, I will never trust the medical system again. And I think that the more and more that we understand what happened to your daughter, if we go to functional medicine and we go to holistic doctors, and I remember you very well tell me, like, you've relived the scenario in your head. You said that you wish you never would have had an oximeter. You would have never taken her to the hospital. You never would have done that, even those devices, right? Because again, you have to believe by the blood of Jesus, you will be healed. And I think that, like, you painted that perfect picture that Satan has dominion. So when you go into these hospitals and you're praying, yeah, you're praying, but you're praying in Satan's house, because they've allowed all of this evil. They've allowed all of these petroleum products. They've put profits above people. There's a dollar and a price tag. You know, the fact that your daughter illegally had a do not resuscitate put on her charts. They put in a cocktail, a deadly cocktail, and they legally murdered her. Like millions of people that were put on those ventilators and given remdesivir, and they were never sent home. And you know, the stories that I hear nowadays, Scott, is people who were running in and having to sneak ivermectin into the hospital and crush it up and rub it on the gums of their loved ones behind the backs, because it's a repurposed drugs and it's like this insurance won't pay for it. They don't want you to do it. I think the question that you know, and again, I only watched a little bit of the clips and what's circulating about your trial. I think what I really want to focus on is the 15-minute deliberation, because if that doesn't really say everything, like how could they process countless days and hours and weeks of preparation, months and years of research in 15 minutes?
Well, that's spot on. I'll just make a couple of very quick comments about what you just said. So you said they legally killed Grace, and I want to expand on that a bit because it's very important. So yes, they legally killed her, and that doesn't mean they lawfully killed her, but they legally killed her. And so that's what the jury decided. And that's why the 15 minutes is so shocking. And I'm going to dovetail these two things together, the 15 minutes and what they decided. So they decided that because you go into a hospital, there is implied consent. And so consequently, the doctors do not have to tell you anything. They don't have to tell you what meds they give you. They don't have to tell you you were overdosed, which happened to Grace twice before the third overdose. She was given Precedex, lorazepam, and morphine. They had no obligation to tell us that. This is all things the jury decided. And it's because of the concept that a standard of care is what a reasonable doctor would do in a similar situation. So they brought in experts to testify what the doctor did was perfect. And the jury sided in favor. And you know, even more substantial is that they decided that if you do not allow the doctor to do whatever he wants, including a ventilator. So we denied the pre-authorization request for a ventilator. That means the patient is labeled DNI, do not intubate, which is correct. But DNI then, what the jury decided, is the same as DNR. And a doctor can unilaterally put a DNR on a patient without consent, without a witness, without a signature, and without a DNR bracelet, because that's what their experts testified to. Of course, our experts testified the opposite, but we had 2 experts, they had 6. And you know, the system, this legal system, allows a standard of care to be variable as opposed to, you know, just common sense reality. But you know, in God's economy, liberalism, it means that it's situational ethics. God is the opposite of liberalism. I'm not talking about politics here, but in God's economy, morality is absolute. So they have situational ethics. Their doctors that they brought in to testify said all these things I just said, and the jury believed that. So, you know, in 15 minutes, that tells you that they decided the outcome of this case before they ever got into the deliberation room. And, you know that with 100% certainty because we had 2 weeks and 4 days of testimony. How could they possibly go through all of that and make a decision? It makes no sense. So that means that, the programming, one juror stood with us. So 1 out of 12 represents 8%. And Mike, this is the saddest piece to me when I think about it, because I think 8%, is that the real number in our population that understands, has critical thinking, is awake, and actually sees that this whole thing is corrupt. And I think that that's true. Then I also want to just say one more thing, Mike, before coming back to you, which is you mentioned about remdesivir and ventilators. And this is the miracle that God, through God's providence, why did we even have a lawsuit? Well, he called us to do the lawsuit, but then how was it even possible in their system to have a lawsuit? And it was because we never took any of the emergency use authorization modalities, remdesivir, tocilizumab, a ventilator. That was what facilitated us getting to the jury trial. That's why we were the first one in the entire country that had COVID-19 on the death certificate that made it to jury trial. So, I mean, that was a miracle. It's a miracle that millions of people saw the trial live stream. I mean, it's miracle after miracle. So, I'm humbled to be used. I believe that this trial has fits into our mission, which is under Genesis 50:20, which says what you meant for evil, God meant for good, the saving of many lives, which is happening today. And Grace lost her life to save many. And, the trial was a puzzle piece in that overall mission. And it was awesome to be part of it, Mike.
So I want to offer a little bit, if not a lot of bit of hope. And that will be, you said 8%, right? So if you had one jury side with you out of 12, that's 8%. So I don't know if you know much about the 8% threshold as far as sociological or physiological significance, but that's what's known as the minority influence theory. If you look that up, that was from 1969 from Moscovici, and that research suggests that a small, consistent minority, often cited between 8 to 10%, can eventually shift the views of the majority. Tipping point dynamics. And when just 10% of the population holds an unshakable belief, their opinion will eventually be adopted by the majority. So that 8% of people who have woken up or become aware, potentially on the brink of societal change, waking up, awareness, consciousness. These are common in movements about government transparency, environmental activism, spiritual awakening, and anti-corporate or anti-consumerist sentiments. So the population actually waking it up, I believe we are putting it together. And I believe wholeheartedly in the spirit, Scott, that you were never about the money. You could care less. You even said if you won, all of the money was going to be put into a nonprofit organization to help protect more people and give people more choices and empower people. So for you, this was a win-win, because what we get to do now is continue to let Grace's legacy live on. We're going to continue to raise awareness, and we're going to continue to shift that 8% to 10%, because what happens is when 2 people gather, then 4 people are reached, then 8 people are reached, then it goes to 16, 32, until billions and billions of people have heard Grace's story. They've heard what we're doing here on the Maha with Mike podcast. They've heard of the gospel of Jesus Christ, because God will continue to use broken situations to bring more glory to the kingdom of God. And I think that's what this story will continue to be for you. This is about saving souls. This is about Grace up in heaven with a little fishing line, and she wants to bring as many people with her to heaven as possible.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Oh, I don't even know how to top that, Mike. I mean, exceptionally well said. She, I also see her up in heaven telling Jesus jokes, because, she was quite a comedian. But of course, Jesus knows the answer to her jokes before she kills them. I do want to say one other thing about the traps that are in this system, because now I've had almost 2 full weeks to process. I did a draft of my trial summary yesterday, and for those of you who are interested in really drilling down what happened at the trial, that'll be released next week. It's just in draft right now. It's very long. It took me 20 hours to write it. But one of the things that I learned in putting that together is, I've been emphasizing in my research the traps, the satanic traps. And, they're very hard to spot. But one of the ones that as I was putting together the trial summary, is this idea of informed consent. So the jury decided against informed consent, that informed consent is not necessary in a hospital because you give implied consent. In fact, just a quick rabbit trail on that, Mike. We presented, because we saw the judge leaning that way. In fact, he said he was leaning that way, that you give implied consent just by going in a hospital. So we presented one of the fraudulent documents that were in the medical records, and specifically that Grace and I, so to set the stage, Grace and I arrived at the emergency room about 2:10 in the afternoon on October 6th of 2021. In the medical records, there's a document at 2:27, so 17 minutes later, that says, realize I'm in the room with Grace. I'm her dad, I'm her advocate, and her power of attorney. But somehow somebody, an unnamed person, because it's not listed on the form, even though they're supposed to put their name on the form, an unnamed person had a conversation with Grace, and she approved orally the general consent document. So the whole hospital stay was a complete fraud. But yet none of this swayed the jury. It's hard to grasp, and I'm laying this out in my case summary, but I want to zoom out just a bit. So God gave us bodily autonomy, period. That means no one can do anything to you without your consent. So to be blunt, those screaming for informed consent are in the trap. So why do I say this? So the idea of informed consent is part of the fallacy of Satan's medical system. The idea of informed consent presumes the doctor is above your rights, but has to inform you and get your consent. That idea is part of the slippery slope we've been programmed to believe. The jury decided that informed consent is not necessary because a person is giving implied consent by entering a hospital. That decision shows how far down the slope we are today. God wants us to have knowledge of the freedom he died for and gave us. And that's critical to this. God says in Hosea 4:6, my people perish for lack of knowledge. And it's not knowledge, it's not red pill knowledge of informed consent. It's knowledge of his way and his character. And that means when you go to any medical facility, you take your rights back, your freedom back, and you do not allow them to do anything unless you consent. Don't rely on informed consent. You already have the power, and it's time to take it back.
I think that a lot of people in this world, Scott, a lot of people, they kind of pass very quietly, and there are countless lives every day that pass quietly in this world. And then there's also lives that echo. And I feel like Grace is one of those rare souls. Through her time, although it be brief, it has left an imprint deeper than most will ever know. And she didn't strive for recognition. You told me that she kind of just, had those little inside jokes and was always leaving like poop around the house for you to find. And, she loved Jesus and lived truthfully, tenderly, and fully in the radiant simplicity of love. She taught us that by being true to yourself and being filled with joy, not only did she believe in Jesus with her lips, but she did it with her laughter, her affection, and her unwavering trust in the good. And I truly do believe that this is not merely a story about loss, but this is a story about a life that overflowed with purpose, joy, and literally divine grace. And I think that it's one of those things where now that you look back, it was kind of a win-win, right? Because like my dad had told me when my mom was in hospice and we were praying for a miracle, my dad said the same thing to my mom that I will say to you about Grace. And for her, it was a win-win because either she got better and she left that hospital and got to be with you and continue to laugh, or she didn't get better and she got to go be with Jesus, who was her real father. She called you her heavenly or her earthly father. And it sucks. No father, no mother should ever have to bury their child. But I just want to continue in these closing 60 seconds to remind you that she is going to make a huge impact in Christianity. And I think a lot of people are going to come to the Lord because of your baby girl. And I just pray that it brings you joy. And I'm going to continue to pray because I believe you've already won. Your story was heard. People came and they stood up for you. And I'm going to continue to make sure that we keep passing along your story. And if anybody wants to donate to the foundation, give us again the website one more time. And also where people can just go and kind of leave nice comments and words of encouragement for you.
Everything is accessible at ouramazinggrace.net. So, when you go to that website, you'll see on the homepage everything, research, our Substack, everything is accessible there. And Mike, I want to just say to you personally, as a man, you're one of the few. You only got to know me recently. I've been on about 1,200 shows historically. Hardly any of those people have reached out, but you reached out. And it's interesting to me as to how many people are bought in this supposed medical freedom movement. I'm on the front lines, and you, as a man, reached out to me, and I'm very thankful for that. You're one of the good ones, and God bless you, Mike.
God bless you, brother. And you're more than welcome. Anytime you want to come on and talk about your girl, we'll let her live on. As long as I live, as long as this network lives, we'll continue to have you on. That's all we have for today. Guys, please go check out his website. Also go to Farm Easy Bank and check out the company that saved my mom's life. Well, it was actually Jesus. They were number 2, but that's farmeasybank.com. Use promo code MAHA2025. Get your ivermectin, min, bin, fin, bin, and all the things that will make you good again. Drake, signing off. We'll see you guys next week. Have a happy 4th of July. Guys, don't blow off any of your fingers.